What's going on, everybody? I'm Josh Douglas. Welcome to another episode of What's on My Deck. It is April and we are finally home. We just made it back home to northern Minnesota. Generally, right around things, we are pretty spring right around now, but up here in northern Minnesota and up into Canada, things are still frozen. Mille Lacs is still good frozen. But some of those ponds and stuff like that are starting to open up. Stuff down in the city and southern Minnesota all open. So if you find yourself in the northern hemisphere of the United States, you are probably in a hardcore pre-spawn pattern right now. You know, right after ice out, things happen quick. You got pre-spawn, you start pushing to those real little shallow back bays, areas where that water is going to get, you know, out of the 40s and into the 50s as soon as you can, high 40s, and then the lake will start to come along as May and June start to roll in. But it's an awesome time of year. You know, Minnesota, the season's closed, so I spend a lot of time just across the border. It's not too far from my house. I spend a lot of time over there because they have a catch and release season. Awesome time. You know, when those fish first come ice out, they're hungry. They haven't seen baits in a long time. It's a good time to just get out there, work on new presentations, and at the same time just catch a bunch of fish. Another beautiful thing about this area is we have both largemouth and smallmouth in these lakes. So I'm maybe going back and forth depending on what the conditions are doing, what I'm targeting, and that's what we're going to get into. So because of that, I got a couple extra rods today. We're going to do 11 total. I've been playing with some brand new setups that I get from G. Loomis and Shimano. Been using them myself. I'm getting them rigged up. I got Shields University coming up next week. We'll be out with the employees out fishing. Got them all kind of rigged up. We're going to go through those, and then I'm going to talk the last four. With two bonus rods are going to be some of the new NRX Plus stuff that I got rocking. So that's just jump right in it. We'll just kick off with one I swear I bring up every single one of these when we're talking pre-spawn, and that is a chatterbait. These blaze orange colors are really good this time of year, especially anywhere from, I would say, exclude Florida, Alabama, and north. They just really like this color around here in the pre-spawn. It makes big females mad. They tend to eat it. This is a 1/2 ounce jackhammer. I'm using a brand new bait. It's like an Exo Minnow. It's got like a little fluke style bait. Just released. I just cut the head off it so it fit my chatterbait just a little bit better. Got a little fork tail. Awesome new introduction to the Biospawn line. Works great as just a fluke. I'll be using some of the bright chartreuse ones, you know, once May, June, once those fish are up shallow on the reefs, the smallies, but at the same time, it's also really good as a chatterbait trailer. Let's talk about the setup. I talk about this a lot so far in the NRX line. This is the 883 BJR bladed jig rod, the G Loomis IMX Pro bladed jig rod. 7.4 medium heavy power action rod. It's really nice. It's soft, but just soft enough to kind of work it through the weeds without ripping the weeds out. Right now, this time of year, when you're dealing with ice cap lakes that are, you know, ice capped in the winter, the weeds aren't very strong. A lot of them can make it through the year, but they're kind of dormant. They're laying down. They're a little stringier. It's very important that I don't have too heavy of a rod to rip that vegetation out and have it clinging. I just want something soft to pop it off. And at the same time, when you're talking about high 40s, 40-degree water temp, those fish aren't exactly jacking this bait. You know what I mean? They're eating it kind of soft. They don't really want to eat it, but at the same time, they want a bigger profile. They're eating up. Awesome rod to go along with that bait. I'm throwing a 7-speed Shimano Curado DC, just a cool reel. I like to use it. I use this one when I'm guiding a lot for people to throw. They love the DC concept. It's just a fun rod, and then straight 17-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon. Again, awesome setup. I'm using it all the time. I'll use a chatterbait well through the pre-spawn until we get into the spawn. Maybe even still a little bit of post-spawn. But that'd be our first setup right there. That's largemouth fishing. Let's stick with largemouth for a little bit, and let's talk about the swim jig. Swim jig is a staple for me, especially up here. I need to learn to start throwing this thing more in tournaments because it's a confident bait for me. You know, it's one of those deals. I fished it all the time, did well with it, and then I got to know too many other techniques, and I don't throw it nearly as much as I should be. And I'm getting back on it, just like the frog. I told myself this year I'm going to throw frog more, and that's helped a lot on the Elite Series with some big bass to cash me some money, give me some paychecks. But this right here is an Outkast Tackle Pro Swim Jig. It's just a little green pumpkin, blue color, but I'm using a little Get Bitten Baits Hypertail grub on the back of it. I'm a big fan of just this time of year, not a lot of movement to the baits, just a little bit. And the old school, it's just kind of old fashioned. I like the grub this time of year. Later in the year, I'll probably go to, like, you know, an Exo Swim swimmer, something like that, or an Exo pod, something that, you know, like a crawdad. But this time of year, I'm just looking for something real sleek. This is a 1/4 ounce, and I'm throwing it on 15-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon line. My rod, a Loomis IMX Pro 863 SWBR. It's kind of a newer rod for me. I got to play with it a lot in the fall last year, but this is a swim bait rod, so it's a paddle tail rod. It's 7.2. It'd be a medium heavy action, almost a medium heavy action. Got a lot of backbone, fast tip on it, and I'm using a Shimano Chronarch MGL spool. Helps me cast light things a long way. I talk about that a lot. This is just an all-around awesome setup, throwing a swim jig. And you know, I can also use this as a jig. I'll swim it around cover. They like to get around pad stems right now. They like to get around isolated wood. Anything that I can find, and at the same time I can kill it. I can roll it over the top of a laydown, kill it in there. The bluegills are shallow, everything's shallow, and that mimics it without too much flash. If it gets really conditional out and the wind starts blowing and all that, then I'll keep the same setup, just switch that out for like a bass, like a 1/2 ounce, 3/8 ounce Bassman spinnerbait, and just fish the conditions. So that's my setup right there. It's number 2. Let's keep up. Well, this is kind of largemouth and smallmouth right here. And this is a new rod. It's actually a new product line altogether for me, and I've just been loving it. This January, I got my hands on some of the brand new Shimano baits that just hit out. I know I've talked about the World Minnow. I've had that now for a year or two. Been utilizing that at least a year. But they just came out with the new line of Shimano in the Macbeth series. This right here is the Macbeth 57F flat. Awesome little flat side crankbait, but it has jet boost in it, okay? It moves back and forth. This is the longest casting flat side that I've ever used before, and the reason why I like that, they also use that technology with like the World Minnow, which we'll get in the jerk bait. You're talking about baits that generally are very hard to cast. That's why a lot of people don't like to throw them, but they're fish catchers. And this right here is a flat side, is a great fish catcher. Again, I got a little that blaze orange, that matte brown on top, orange on the sides, good springtime color, brown craw, something like that. Looks really good. For a rod, I'm using a brand new Loomis GCX 845C CBR. I use this in the IMX Pro version a lot. I got to admit, now I've had my hands on, I've been fishing these GCX series rods. These things are awesome. They're super light. Honestly, can't tell you a lot of difference between them and all the way up to the very high-end stuff that they make. And especially when you're using crankbaits, you just don't need an NRX Plus blank for something like a square bill. In fact, I want to dumb down the blank just a little bit if I can, which is why I like that softer rod. Those fish, again, winters, you know, coming off of winter, they're not biting the bait the best, so I want a real soft rod to be able to help me land these fish when I get them in. I'm using, again, the Shimano Chronarch MGL 12-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon. Again, that MGL just helps me cast this, but with the addition to jet boost, I really don't need that MGL spool. It's just kind of, you know, icing on the cake at that point. But flat sides, awesome largemouth baits, awesome spotted bass baits, and definitely smallmouth. You know, you get around riprap bridges and stuff like that, and a smallmouth will choke the Macbeth flat. Up next, we'll switch into, well, this goes for both largemouth and smallmouth, spotted bass, of course. We're talking about the Exo Swimmer. Little guy, 3.25 on a 1/8 ounce Outcast tackle, Goldeneye swimmer head. That's my head that I helped design. This time of year, I am throwing 1/8 almost always. Fish are getting shallow. They don't want to move a lot. I'm fishing it slow. I'm not really casting a lot and reeling. I'm more casting it, kind of dragging, bumping rocks. If I don't feel rocks, I kill it. And when I go to lean back and check on it, all of a sudden something pulls. So I like to use a softer rod for that. This is the 1/8 ounce again. I want it, when it falls, I want that tail just go, and then they grab it. You know, something slow. I'm working it almost like a tube on the bottom. I'm using the Shimano Vanford right here. This is the 3000 Vanford. I like to spoil my guide clients as much as I can. Not all of them love the 4000 size like I do, so I try to get myself 2500 and 3000s, just to have an all-around nice package. And the rod is really ideal for this. This is the Ned Rig Rod. It's the Loomis IMX Pro 882 NRR, which stands for Ned Rig Rod. When I first got my hands on this, I thought it was way too soft for a Ned Rig, for how I fish a Ned Rig on Lake Mille Lacs or up north. I'm more of a power fisherman. I like that 872, something that has a lot more power and backbone to it, throwing heavier Ned Rigs. But if you get to the true definition of Ned Rig fishing, like Ned Cady and them developed in the central part of the United States, you're talking about super duper light, finicky, bite, and that's why you're using that TRD, something small, and you're using a really little light bait, and this is the rod for that, something really light. I also like to throw spy baits on this thing. I found I like it for a hair jig rod, and I really like it for this time of year when I'm throwing these little light swimmers. There's two reasons why I like it. Again, it's softer. It's a lot softer rod. It's a little bit longer, like I said, 7.4, so that helps cast. The limberness in the rod definitely helps me chuck this little 1/8 ounce head way out there, and then again, that's soft. When I pick up on them, I go like this. Oh, that's not a rock, it's pulling back. I got a bass. I can pick it up real quick. Here I'm using regular standard 10-pound Power Pro. They're high vis yellow, and I'm using 10-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon line. Fish eat fish. This little bait right here, in a pinch, will always put fish in the boat all times of year. So it's definitely a good staple to have when I'm out guiding, when I'm looking at new water, but don't think it just catches little ones, because I have caught a lot of 5 and 6 pound smallmouth on this bait right here. As the spring develops, again, we're early, so as it develops a little bit, I'll start switching into bluegilly, perchy colors. But again, right now, this time of year, I like that shad, natural shad color. The hair jig. Not ideal hair jig time, okay? This is the Outkast tackle Feider fly. I've got a little piece of Cinco on it. I'm ready to rock and roll, man. I'm feeling it. I can't wait to get out on my lax and start throwing this around, but it's also an awesome cold weather bait. Why? Because it's hair. It's as natural as it gets. I catch some largemouth, I catch some spots, but it's definitely a smallmouth killer. Generally, when the ice goes out, your water will be at its clearest for the year. So something like this, something really subtle that I can throw around in shallow water, is going to be super ideal, not just as a mainstay smallmouth bait. You know, I'm throwing this thing around looking for bites. It'll catch walleyes, it'll catch everything. Again, it's that natural marabou presentation in really cold weather. To throw it, I'm using a Loomis IMX Pro 901S SJR. It's a swim jig rod, 901. We talk about it a lot. I have this in the NRX Plus version. I have an IMX Pro version. Just a good all-around rod for spy baits and hair jigs, definitely. Like I said, this is the Outkast tackle. What did we talk about? The reel. Shimano Stradic 3000 XG. I'm using standard 8-pound Power Pro braid, and I like just regular green because I'm not running too long of a leader. And I got a little 8-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon leader on top of that. Again, a little bit early, but this thing will get big bites from weary bass in really cold water. What else we got? The old Ned Rig. Ned Rig, tube, shaky head. Those are 3 baits I'm going to throw a lot this time of year. This right here is a 10,000 Fish Sukoshi Bug on 1/8 ounce Outkast tackle. Perfect Ned head, my perfect Ned head. Awesome bait. I basically always have one on. Even at Chickamauga, I caught my biggest bass on a Ned Rig. Maybe should have been throwing big gliders and stuff, but still, at the end of the day, Ned Rig gets bites, and gets bites from big ones. I like the Sukoshi. You know, these fish are feeding up right now. They're getting up on the rocks. They're getting around areas that are going to warm the fastest. So you take a lake, ice is out, it's starting to heat up. Those fish are going to want to move shallow and move shallow fast. And then they're going to be attracted to hard cover first. They're going to want to get to stuff that is going to be just a little bit warmer than the rest. So riprap, shallow rock piles, and wood are all 3 areas that I'm definitely going to attack, especially on a sunny day. And a Ned Rig will get those bites. I'm using an IMX Pro 852S Jig Worm Rod, just your standard 7-foot medium action Jig Worm Rod. I can go from a shaky head to a Ned Rig to a tube, whatever I want on this thing. And we're using the Shimano Stradic 2500. Here we got 10-pound Power Pro SSV2 braid going to a 10-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon leader. Just an awesome little bait. We catch giants out here on Mille Lacs when we're guiding, and my clients, I mean, this rod has got some serious weight the last year. All right. Last but not least, for when it comes to the fishing rods. We got 4 more specialty rods. I'm going to get into that here in a minute, but let's get to this one. This right here is Grappler Shad Wrap. Man, I don't throw this bait a whole lot, but when the ice goes out anywhere in the country, when the water's super cold and bass are finicky and they're up shallow on those rocks, another fish catching bait. It just is. It sucks to throw. It's hard to throw, hence why I have it on a spinning rod, a drop shot rod at that, but it's just a fish catcher. Again, it's just one of those baits that has worked since before I was born, and at the same time just keep putting fish in the boat. to throw it. That's the key. It's a hard bait to throw because it is so light. It likes to get caught in the wind. It's cold. It's nasty. A spinning rod's the way to go. I'm using a Loomis GCX 802S drop shot rod. Awesome little rod for drop shotting. We're going to drop shot big old smallies off rocks and stuff this year. But at the same time, this is a great rod to throw a shad wrap just because it is so soft. And at the same time, they're going to nip this bait. Again, soft rods, if you can't see, I'm talking about that a lot in my presentation. Softer rods this time of year to keep finicky biters, cold fish, and just to promote a slower retrieve. Another great reason for the 2500 and 3000 size spinning reels this time of year, I'm promoting that slow retrieve. You can't move the bait slow enough when you're talking about this early in the pre-spawn up north. My presentation, my rod for this, I talked about the rod. Let's get the reels, a Shimano Vanford 3000, super smooth drag on that thing, 10-pound Power Pro SSV2 to throw it, and at the same time I'm running 8-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon line, and that's my setup for the shad wrap. Great bait to have on this time of year. Again, 1 month of the year will I rock the shad wrap, but it will put fish in the boat when I do. All right, let's get into it. I'm guiding. I'm on the front of the boat. Guide's got to have some of his rods scattered around. A lot of times, my clients, they're out there, they're fishing, they're doing their thing, they're throwing it where I tell them to throw it, they're catching fish and having fun, and I'm sitting there staring at the active target, getting better with it, getting better with it. That Lowrance active target is so critical to me, and there's a couple baits that I'm going to utilize to catch these fish. First is the Shimano World Minnow. This is a brand new color I just got. Pretty excited to put this one to the works out there. The World Minnow is awesome. It has flash boost, it has jet boost, it has scale boost, it has all the things you need. It's the farthest casting jerk bait I've ever used on the market to date, which is huge. When I'm throwing a jerk bait, I want to get it away from the boat, water super clear, and I want to be able to hit it, and with the extra weight in it, man, when I see a fish on my active target, I can fling this thing and I get on them right away. My rod is a Loomis NRX Plus 842C MBR. I've been falling in love with this rod for jerking. Real soft rod. Probably won't use it for big largemouth down in Florida, stuff like that. We've talked about that in past episodes, but awesome for open water smallmouth fishing, and just, again, even largemouth this time of year. Our vegetation's not too thick. They're weary. Again, I can't express it enough. Nice soft rod that I get out of this 842 is pretty critical. 7-foot medium action, and I am throwing a Shimano Metanium DC with straight 10-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon. I can cast it a mile with this DC technology, combined with jet boost in the World Minnow. Awesome all-around setup. Next up, we got the Damiki rig, if you will. Mopping, I'm not sure how Gussie says they say it in Canada, but he is my teacher at this. I think Gussie's one of the best at it, and I am trying to mimic it as much as I can because it's just a fish catcher. It's just basically a little straight-tailed deal. This bait that I'm using is actually called, I got the pack right here, it's the Shimmer Shad, and what I like about it so much from Catchco is it has a little piece of tin foil in there, so it's a super natural looking bait. It's on my Outcast Tackle Goldeneye, a little 1/4 ouncer. And it's just natural, but it's just got a little bit of shimmy to it. Fits my bait, fits my head perfect. And what I'm doing with this is I'm looking at fish that are either below me or that I see swimming that are not generally fish that you're gonna catch with everyday baits, and I'm trying to keep it above them. Basically, I'm crappie fishing on live, on active target for big smallmouth and big largemouth. My setup for it is an awesome Loomis NRX Plus, an 852S Jig Worm Rod. Not too long, so I'm accurate. You know, I'm snapping, I'm throwing this thing off, I'm throwing it at different fish when I see them on the active target, trying to catch them. It is a little bit of an advanced technique, so it's one that I'm throwing up a lot. Not generally one I do when I'm, got my mic in there, not generally one I use for guiding all the time, but again, good way to pick up fish or get them going active and keep sharpening my skills while I'm putting good folks on big bass. Again, I'm using my Shimano Accents 4000. How could I not? It's my favorite reel on the market. It's big, but it's light. Just too many reasons not to throw a 4000 under most conditions. I'm pretty trained at what I do, so I'm not worried about that faster gear ratio. Matter of fact, I like it because when they bite it, it's a soft bite. Boom, I can hit them, catch them up. And the rod, the sensitivity you get from NRX Plus, I don't know if there's a better setup. 10-pound Power Pro SSV2 to an 8-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon leader. Okay, all right, we got two more I'm gonna throw in here. A tube. People forgot about a tube. A tube catches big largemouth, catches big smallmouth, and nothing is better in cold water than a tube. This right here is a Get Bit Baits tube. It's their smaller version with their head too. Their little head, it's got a shorter shank on it. It's like 1/4 ounce, maybe 5/16, something like that. Using G Loomis, my favorite spinning rod G Loomis makes, the G Loomis NRX Plus 872S Jig Worm Rod, JWR. That is 7.3, and it's a medium action tip that meets a medium heavy body. It's got, I can power fish this thing. I talk about it a lot. If you follow along with this series, you know I love this rod in every capacity. For 80% of my spinning rod fishing, I'm using this rod. Shaky head, big drop shots, Ned rigs, and in this case, tube. Again, the 4000 picks up line quick when they pick it up. 10-pound Power Pro SSV2, 10-pound Seaguar Invizx Fluorocarbon leader. Sometimes I go 12. The key to this one is digging it around the way it wants to fall, using heavier stuff with the zebra mussels we have up north. Sometimes I use 12-pound Seaguar Invizx, but just an all-around awesome bait. Again, if I see one under me or whatever, I'm handing this one off to my guide clients if I feel like they're on a tube bite. But just cold weather, don't forget about a tube. Don't sleep on it. It's the one bait that you can't really control when you lift up and you let it fall. It does its own thing. Ned rigs fall straight back down. Shaky heads fall straight back down. Jig worms, same, but the tube is like a fumbled football. It's something that you can't make. It's like a crankbait deflecting off something that triggers a bite. The way that this thing falls triggers bite, and just an awesome overall bait for throwing in these cold weather scenarios. So definitely, and I don't think anyone makes a better tube for this kind of stuff, smallmouth tube, than Get Bit Baits. It's just an awesome bait. Last but not least, we got a brand new bait right here from BioSpawn that I'm pretty dang, at first I didn't even know what to think. I'll be honest, I didn't know what to think. It's the Vile tube, and it's not just your traditional tube. It's like a beaver meets a tube, okay? It's flat, it has the appendages here, and then it's got a lot of tube action. It's a Get Bit bait, man. I'm pretty excited about it. I just ordered a lot more after throwing it around a little bit as soon as I got home. Awesome bait. I'm using a G Loomis NRX Plus 854C Jig Worm Rod. A lot of times I'd like an 894, that's 7.5. But in this case, I'm up in tight cover. I'm flicking it at wood, on laydowns, under dock, stuff like that. I like that 7.1 size, that heavy action 7.1. I'm using the brand new Shimano Bantam XG. This thing's got infinity drive, 8-to-1 gear ratio. This is a bad to the bone reel. I'm gonna get more of these. I'm gonna use them for a lot of things. Still a giant Metanium fan, huge Curado fan, but when I want that medium-sized spool and I want to do a lot of casting, flipping around and stuff, this Bantam, it's going to be very, very hard to beat, and a super popular reel in the Shimano line. I'm using straight 17-pound Seaguar Invizx Fluorocarbon. I got about a 5/16 Woo tungsten weight on top of this, and then an Owner Jungle extra wide gap 4/0 hook is what I got on that. So again, this bait, brand new one from BioSpawn. I'm excited about it. I haven't seen a hybrid bait quite like this before. You know, a tube and a beaver is essentially the same thing in how they fish with not a lot of movement. And combining the two with a hollow belly like that, I think it's going to help hookup ratios. It's a little look the fish hasn't seen, and it really has a good look in the water. So that's it. That is my setup. We went, instead of our traditional 9, we went 11. Hope you enjoyed this one. Again, by the time we get into May, we'll be talking about big smallmouths. We'll have all my stuff ready to rock and roll, big Mille Lacs smallies. So make sure to tune in if you're a smallmouth guru or you want to get to know more on that. And until next time, tight lines. Happy spring.